Oh man.
So Robert, is there, like, thinking for a minute about Son of Sequel? What what's the wildest thing you could think about doing musically, like in that context, that you've just never had the guts to do? Like the first thing that comes to your mind, like a ukulele piece, you know what I mean? Or is
a ukulele opera?
I've done that. There's ukulele in GK too.
If you're going to do that opera thing again, make it all ukuleles.
There you go. If we get up to that stretch goal, then we're suddenly in opera land.
But with the plugins today, with some of the vocal plugins that are out there, you could almost pull off something.
Well, I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I definitely want to do on this one is some more sort of guitar focused stuff. Both like some baritone guitar kind of textures, more in an ambient way, and also sort of more in the acoustic Scarlet Furies-ish, realm. Mm-hmm. Maybe mixing that, with the more electronic side.
Oh, baritone guitar with ambient synth pads would be very nice.
Exactly.
And some cello.
Exactly.
Tape loops,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I guess I just, to answer your question specifically, I do tend to think more traditionally in terms of, it's going to be some kind of guitar realm or some kind of uke texture or some kind of, synth-based thing. But I had an interesting thought about, as this whole sort of thing with Jane kind of bloomed, and we started talking about it, I thought maybe I could have her generate with me a list of just sort of attributes and traits. And, like if you were to describe GK1, what kinds of, just kind of like the prompts thing that you would do with AI, right? So just thinking about, because I know, I don't want to put her in a corner in terms of the story, but, she might be able to give us a list of things that would just be like, darkness, tension, things
that would be interesting, yeah.
And it would,
and then later on would bring us into alignment with where she goes.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like that could be a really interesting confluence of the two. What she ends up writing, and what Son of Sequel ends up kind of having elements of in it. That could be really interesting.
Yeah, and then it's more synergistic and less reactive. It's not like, okay, you write something to react to the music, or I'll write music to react to the story. It's more kind of, which when I think about the way, the GKs happened, it was very much like that. It was kind of like, hey, what if we did this? Yeah, and I could do that, and then you could do this.
So is there any, sort of like a mad scientist, is there any particular tech or anything that you want to push into this on your end? It's like, I've always been wanting to X, and I'm going to try it here, I mean, you've got, I keep asking you, it's like, how do you like the Zen delay? How do you like the Zen delay? And you're like, I'm getting to it.
Yeah.
Is this it? Is this where it happens?
I don't know. I tend to think very specifically within a song, the universe of that song. Mm-hmm. And so, most likely I won't really have any indications of that kind of thing until I get into a particular form, as opposed to sort of saying, well, on this album, I'm going to do this, and hopefully just because of my inclinations and it's probably the downfall as well, because of my inclinations. Certain decisions tend to be made, over others. But
yeah, but your inclinations are partially why people buy the product, because if you went and did an album that was like totally out in left field, that was like nothing like your
right,
GK music
right.
from the past, and it was all I don't know, all banjos or something, or let's make it sound like Miley Cyrus or whatever, that kind of thing. I mean, people would be like, that's not what I want to listen. It was like when people make Christmas albums. It's like my wife and I listen to a lot of country music, and sometimes the artist will make a Christmas album, and it's like heavy orchestral, and they're like singing like an opera singer. I'm like, that's not what we were thinking about listening to you.
Margaret rock and roll record. I heard a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's like that's not what we were. We wanted to hear you as what you do the that kind of thing. So
I feel like I want to sequel. I think really of course stayed in very familiar land, and I do want to straddle a little more this time the things that, as you said, that I think people appreciate about the past work, but also, just like the Scarlet Furies did for Gray Matter, sort of bring in a new flank to just sort of air the room out a bit and give it some more breath. And I think, I think that's why I'm really excited about having you guys more involved, because I think you influence me that way. And, the things that you're going to bring to the table are, just going to organically help that happen.
I think the thing doing something with the Furies is a cool thing too, because your fans and all are used to having seen that on and off through the years in different performance videos with you, and then I think you all did David's song, and all, and that kind of thing. So it's kind of like people identify that with you anyway. So it's nice to have that come back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I mean, those are all really important people to me, and I'm very proud of all.
Especially one of them.
Yeah, especially one of them.
Yeah,
and I'm really proud of the work that we all did, and it was great when that all happened in Gray Matter. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, it was so groundbreaking for a video game score because of that element," and it was just really lucky because we had recorded all of those tracks prior to thinking about, or Jane saying, "Hey, do you want to put some Scarlet Furies in the game?" And it just happened to organically sort of work and support the mood well.
So let me ask you another question, though, about Son of Sequel, because for this one coming so soon, I mean, it's it's a year.
It's a year later.
Yeah, it's a year later. So it's relatively soon, Do you anticipate a challenge related to that, or is there like a challenge with Son of Sequel that you see that maybe wasn't there when you did Sequel, when Sequel was happening? Or would you or maybe putting it a little differently, what do you anticipate as the big challenge in this one?
That sounds like an AI generated question.
Yeah, it might be. You don't have to call me out like that. Come on. I got to edit that whole comment out now.
Yeah. It's a damn good question, George.
The biggest challenge is going to be getting up in the morning after you've done that. Right. What's the next one?
Trying to figure out. how to deliver the project after.
If I'm self-critical about sequel, it I think it successfully really leaned on its roots, and I think that's what people wanted it to do. So I feel like it was, it fulfilled what it was supposed to be. And I think the challenge that I feel with this one is, I still want to respect that. I still want to provide some of that, but I also just, want
to expand the palette a little.
Want to expand it, yeah, and I think people want that as well. When you do these Kickstarter things, it's like the best of times and the worst of times. You find yourself really connected to your audience in a very vocal way, which of course, you hear a lot of great feedback, and then you hear a lot of not so great feedback. And, some of the stuff I know, we probably struggled with this Kickstarter is, sort of, is it going to be more of the same kind of thing? And is it, creatively less inspired? And that's not the case, but I can see where, especially with the title, where people could fall into that concept,
Yeah, I think that leaning on the past, but then like what you said, George, it's expanding the palette. It's good. With the newer synths and all that you have too, it's like, you can recreate the sounds that you used back then, but you can also do more,
Yeah.
There's a lot more ambient type sounds now with some of these pedals and everything too. I mean, it's just, there's areas that you can go that you just couldn't go back then. Although I bet a lot of the ambient sounds that people are making now, when we go and watch different ambient things on YouTube, probably could have done back 30 years ago. Although some of the really long delay times, I'm not sure. I can't remember how long you could go back then. But
then they just use tape in a room, and have it going on multiple machines. Now I think there's a lot more textures available. There's just a lot more in the way of textures. That our instruments and equipment produce, and I think some of the techniques that are being brought back, but are being changed because I'm very serious about thinking about how to apply tape and tape loops and things to some of the stuff that's done, and how people will run and degrade that, and then maybe use that in a very different way. They'll chop it differently and put a song together differently, that you definitely recognize the heritage or whatever you want to call of the song, but it's in a different spot. So I think trying to bring some of that to this will both respect the fans, but also bring a more modern sort of tonality to some of it, and perhaps structure.
Yeah. So, I think another vehicle, like we kind of talked about the other day, would be us interacting in different way in a different sequence. So, rather than like on sequel, where I would pretty much bake a tune and then I would toss it over to you guys and you would do your magic, we could do some things like that, but other things could be like George, could start the textural foundation, and then, Roger, you and I react to that. Or
that would be cool.
Or you start with, Roger, an arrangement of something, and then, George and I react to that,
Yeah, didn't we do that on one of the songs on Son of Sequel? I think I did I do a string quartet or something?
Yeah.
And then you both added.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think that different kind of sequence
yeah
could make some interesting different impacts, you know.